Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the UK Stroke Assembly online and in your homes. My name's Tony Banks, Head of Conference and Events at the Stroke Association and proud Chair of the UK Stroke Assembly. We're into week 5 of our 6-week programme, and this week is all about staying connected. You can catch up on any webinars you've missed so far at stroke.org.uk/UKSA Virtual. You can see webinars from the past 4 weeks online, and please do catch up and spread them to others that may want to watch them too. As always, we want to hear from you. This is your webinar series. We'd like to hear what you have to say. So please post your messages and your comments in the chat box. And as always, we'll have Natalie with us, monitoring your questions throughout and putting your questions to our speakers today. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session. If you would like to post any comments and questions today, please do use the chat box. You'll be able to find this on the right-hand side of your screen, and if you scroll down right to the bottom, you'll be able to see a text bar where you'll be able to submit your questions and comments. I look forward to reading those.
Thanks, Natalie. We also want to hear about what you think about these sessions. We'd love to have your feedback. We're going to be bringing the Stroke Assembly back in September for another round of webinars. So we'll post the link in the chat box now. Please do take 5 minutes to tell us what you think, what you'd like to hear of in the future, and anything we can do to improve these sessions for you. As I say, we'll post that link now and take a few minutes to give us your feedback if possible. And if you're using social media, please do post using the hashtag Stroke Assembly on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram if you're using it. On to today's session, really pleased to have Caitlin from the Stroke Association with us today to talk to you all about getting online. Over to you, Caitlin. We're really looking forward to the session. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's great to be here talking about getting online when you have aphasia. I'm one of the aphasia project managers at the Stroke Association and have been looking specifically at digital access. This is the outline for today's session. I'm going to talk a bit about aphasia and technology, share some of the barriers that people with aphasia might experience when using technology, and I'll talk a bit about our new resource that we've just launched. This is a resource for people with aphasia and their families, but others might find it helpful as well. We will then also discuss some of the skills you can learn from the guide. And finally, we'll end today's session with a video and some questions. There are more than 350,000 people living with aphasia in the UK. Stroke is the most common cause of aphasia, with 1 in 3 stroke survivors experiencing some form of aphasia. We also know that aphasia can affect people differently. It can affect a person's ability to speak, read, write, and sometimes understand speech and use language. But it's very important to remember that aphasia affects language and not intellect. Surprisingly, a recent survey found that 18% of people in the UK describe themselves as non-internet users. Yet there are many benefits to using technology. Being online can keep you informed. You can keep up to date with the news, and this is something which has been incredibly important during lockdown, with information changing from day to day. Technology can also keep you connected. You can share your experiences or hear stories from others. You can keep in contact with family and friends, share pictures, or even make comments on social media like Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Technology can also support independence. You can learn many new skills online, such as how to order things online and have it delivered to your home, which can be a little bit dangerous to do. And you could also do things like online banking where you could pay your bills online instead of having to go into the bank and stand in a queue. You could even set important reminders so you don't forget an important birthday or anniversary, or even reminders to take your medication or anything that you would need. Google Maps is another important feature which can help improve independence and help plan with your trips. But many people with aphasia really enjoy using technology to support communication. There are many aphasia therapy apps to practice communication, but there's also tools to help make using your device easier. Many people like to use a speech reader, which can read the text on your screen aloud. This is helpful when reading busy emails or having something like the newspaper read back to you. But it's important not to forget that being online is really fun. On YouTube, you can watch videos on almost any topic, and I mean any topic. You can even play online games or cards by yourself or with friends. You can connect to others via video call and have a good chat. Try and see what works for you. People with aphasia might initially find it hard to use technology, and this can range from difficulty with using passwords to having to relearn how to use online technology. You might also need to learn how to find information or know where to get support. Technology can change very quickly, and the people who design technology don't always think of others' needs, including the needs of people with aphasia. If you're starting to learn a bit more about technology, do remember you don't need to learn everything at once. Take things one step at a time and learn at your own pace. It will take time to build up your confidence, and it can really help if you have a family member or friend who can support you. Make sure that you keep practicing until you feel confident. It's important to acknowledge that people with aphasia might have some barriers when using technology. Some people might feel anxious or frustrated when technology doesn't work for them, or scared that they might break something. I can promise you that everyone at some point will have struggled with a piece of technology, and that is completely normal. Technology changes often, and it can be challenging to keep up to date. But if you find something you love and enjoy, it's worth practicing. How the stroke has impacted on you might affect how you use technology. If you had difficulty moving your hands, with your vision, fatigue, or aphasia, technology can feel a bit more challenging, but it's not impossible. Find solutions that work for you. We also know that not everyone will have access to a device or Wi-Fi at home. It's important that people with aphasia are supported and know who to ask. And it's very important to realize that people might have quite different experiences. If you've never used technology before and this is your first time, it will be very different to someone who might have used a lot of technology before their stroke. So everyone's journey is different. To help support people with aphasia to get online, we really wanted to find out what people with aphasia wanted. In 2018, we had a large consultation where we spoke to over 100 people with aphasia and asked them what was important. From this feedback, we decided to create a guide that could support more people to get online. Our next step was to review what resources already existed. We found that there were very limited resources for people with aphasia, and many of these resources presumed that the individual already had some sort of experience using technology, which is not always true. The next thing we did was set up a working group. This working group included people with aphasia, researchers, and speech and language therapists. They were able to help and shape the guide with their experiences and their insights, and I can't thank them enough. Throughout the whole process, we also asked many people with aphasia across the UK their thoughts on what should be included and how it should look. And that is how we ended up with our guide. It's great to share with you that we launched this last month. Natalie will kindly be posting the link to this resource if you would like to look at it after the session. The guide is made up of 14 sections, and you can choose to download just the sections that you might be interested in, or the full guide. It's completely free, and you could even print off sections at home. The guide has been put into an aphasia-friendly format, so it's easy to go through information. And we've also included some information for different devices, such as computers, Android tablets, and iPads. This is crucial, as I'm sure many of you know, if you're using an Android tablet like a Samsung, it can be a little bit different, say if you're using an iPad. We released this guide early as we thought there was a need during lockdown, but for those who are unable to print at home, we will soon have free printed versions available, which you'll be able to order from our website very soon. We're also creating some videos to support the text in the guide, and this will hopefully provide some additional support. During lockdown, we realized we needed more information on video calling, and we've created this additional resource to go with the guide. We know how important video calling has become during lockdown so that we can stay connected. And for many people with aphasia, video calling is much better than using a phone, as you can see people's facial expressions, you could type keywords, and you can even use gestures. This guidance is focused on Skype, Zoom, and WhatsApp, depending on what you might want to use or your friends might use. We share how to download the program on different devices, as well as how to use it. We've also shared some guidance on some things that you can think about before you start your call and during your call, so you can feel prepared. Natalie is also going to share this link in the chat box. Now, there are many skills that you can learn from this new guide. I've also heard some family members who felt that their digital skills weren't good enough to support their partner and have really enjoyed working through this guide together and learning together. So please don't be put off if you feel like you're not able to do this. Everyone can, it just takes time. We hope that the guide will support people with aphasia to get online, and if they are already online, to further develop any skills. We want people with aphasia to feel more confident about using technology, and we hope this will help connect people to others. This could be through joining a Zoom group, using My Stroke Guide, Skyping with a family member, joining social media, or sending an email to an old friend. It all has to be about what works for you and what you feel comfortable with. I would be really interested to hear if anyone watching has started to use technology more during lockdown, and I'd really love to hear what your experience has been like. Please feel free to share any of those comments in the chat box, and we can have a look at that at the end of the session. I would recommend starting with something that interests you. I've included an example of how somebody might use the guide, They might want to start with learning a bit more about online safety. It's important to know how to stay safe online and to be aware of any risks. I know when we were first testing this section, a lot of people with aphasia were surprised by some of the information that they hadn't heard before. So that's definitely a chapter to go and have a look at. Next, they might want to set up an email account. This is great for sharing messages or sending photographs with family and friends. We show you step by step how to set up your account, and we also show you the steps to sending an email. Email addresses are a great place to start because often other accounts require you to have an email address. Even something like signing up for your Tesco's card requires you to often have an email account. Next, you might want to practice using Google Maps, and this could help with future planning of trips, especially now that we're starting to go out more. And finally, somebody might be interested in learning a bit more about apps, or they might have had a recommendation from their speech and language therapist. They could follow the step-by-step guidance on how to download an app on their tablet. And we also give some guidance on what to think about before you download an app. At the end of some of the sections, you will see this trophy icon. This is our Challenge Yourself section, and you might want to try out some of these activities to practice your new skills. The examples you can see on the screen come from our section on how to find information online. This section teaches people how to do a Google search or to find images, and these are just some examples you can use to practice. Now, I want to share a video with you featuring Nick Cann, and hopefully he's watching as well. Nick is a member of our working group and has been involved in the development of the guide right from the start. He is passionate as using apps, and he even set up his own app group in his area. Nick was 50 years old when he had his stroke in 2013. He had just started a lecture on financial planning to students in Northampton when he collapsed and was rushed to hospital. Nick's aphasia has impacted his speech, reading, and sometimes how he uses numbers. Full sentences can sometimes be a bit difficult. And while Nick finds numbers challenging, this has not stopped him in the least, and he's even the treasurer of his choir group. Before his stroke, Nick was very tech savvy, but after his stroke, getting online was difficult. He was supported by his family, who helped him to practice until he felt confident in his new skills. Many of you probably know that Nick is now an avid user of technology and uses his smartphone, laptop, or iPad to engage with people. You can also find him on lots of different social media, very active on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But he's great at social media, not just for connecting, but also creating awareness of aphasia. Nick's also been really good at adapting during lockdown and has joined a number of his sessions that were previously in person, online via Zoom or other video call methods. So I'm just going to share a video from Nick.
Nick Cann. 6 years ago, the stroke survivor, aphasia. Northampton University, 6 students, speaking, mic, shock. Aphasia is of common people stroke, meaning the survivors not left the speech difficulties. Philosophy, life, created purpose of life, change varieties. Apps, the speech therapy. Goals, little bit. Practice, practice, practice. Every better of the work of the best of I can. Lucky. Phoenix Project, Aphasia, 3 years. Chepstow, Monmouth, Abergavenny, cafes, people, 6 people. Singing and aphasia and strike chord, Phoenix, busy. Computers, iPad, the mobile phone. Yes. Social media, app, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, world, LinkedIn, business, LinkedIn, RAM, photos and emails, games, and simple practice, practice, practice. Zoom and Skype and people on the online. Great.
Is absolutely correct. It's about practice, practice, practice. So thank you for joining this session today. If you have any questions at a later date, please do feel free to contact me on my email address or my phone number. If you prefer, you can also text me. If you do try out the guide, we would love to hear any feedback that you might have. Or if you think there's anything we should add in the future, please do share that as well. As previously mentioned, we will have free printed copies available from the website very soon. They are being printed as we speak. And now I think it's time for some questions, and it would be really great to hear some of your experiences with using technology.
Caitlin, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. It's such a great resource. Please do post your questions, as Caitlin mentioned, in the chat box, or post your own experiences. We do have some time now to go through those. Natalie, I think we've had some great comments so far.
We have, and thank you, Caitlin, again, and a great video from Nick there. I've got a few comments that I'd like to share that are coming through in the chat box. I've got one in particular from Chris, who struggles with his sentences, his reading and writing, and can sometimes get confused with the order and the meaning of these. He says this makes him very nervous at doing something new. What advice would you give to people at the moment, Caitlin, that maybe want to try getting online but are quite anxious about this?
I definitely think it's not something that you should try do alone or struggle by yourself. Definitely reach out to other people and find someone that you can practice with. If you feel that there's not someone at home, you might want to think about joining one of the Stroke Association groups. I know a lot of the groups currently are meeting online, and it's a great place for you to practice, especially if you are feeling quite anxious about this at the moment. You also might find some apps would be helpful for you. It's quite difficult to say what would work for you without knowing you very well, but it's definitely worth having a look. There is a website called Aphasia Software Finder, which lists a huge amount of apps, and that could be very helpful.
Thank you, Kate. And there is another one relating to that around a Grammarly software. This has helped me with writing online. It's downloaded on my Chrome, so every time I write, it checks it, and I don't have a fear of my writing. Have you come across any sort of suggested software like this before, Caitlin, that we might be able to signpost?
Absolutely. Grammarly is fantastic. I use it myself to double check what I'm writing all the time. And it is free to install into your devices. And you can connect it to your tablets or your computer or even your mobile phone. Do check if you've got it on American English or British English, because that can sometimes leave you with some differences as well.
Thank you. We've had some great comments around Nick's video. People saying, love, practice, practice, practice. This is what I say when people ask me how I'm recovering. So thank you, Nick. So some really lovely comments there for people who've seen the video today. And a lot of this related around some online apps at the moment as well, which are saying that guides are really helpful when writing online. So there's some good links that we'll post here as well. Just have a look if we've got any more questions in.
Natalie, I should say we are working on a project at the moment where we're asking people with aphasia to test some of the aphasia apps, and we will hopefully be able to share that information in the future, but hopefully quite soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. I think that's all the questions we have at the moment. Just lots of excitement around trying new apps at the moment. So I think there's been a real excitement today around people trying something new.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Natalie. I think we've just actually had one more question coming from Roger. Have you got that one there, Natalie, or do you want me to read that?
I found the online read-write site helped get over, just lost. Visual issues. So reading text, read-write included in the guide, is it, Caitlin? Sorry.
We haven't looked at any specific apps in the guide because it really varies on the individual itself. And we didn't want to put something in the guide that we would recommend that wouldn't work for everyone. We are currently looking at different apps and different programs that can help. So we will be sharing some of that information, hopefully fairly soon.
Thank you. And just another comment here from Janet saying Kendall Speakability self-help group now have regular Zoom meetings, and it's great because our members can communicate in their own way. So thank you, Janet, for sharing that as well.
Thanks, Natalie. Caitlin, just whilst we've got you here, I have one more question, if you don't mind, about as we start to see lockdown restrictions loosened and people perhaps getting back to clubs and groups again, how important will technology continue to be? Do you think we'll still see some people wanting to join groups by Zoom, perhaps, even though you can meet face-to-face again?
Absolutely. That's a really good question, Tony. I think a lot of people will really enjoy or really hope that a lot of these online groups continue, and it could be for a number of different reasons. We know some people might live in quite remote or rural areas, and just traveling into a group can be quite stressful and very time consuming. And being able to connect in from home just makes it far more accessible. You're also able to get some additional support if there's family members at home. And I think it's allowed people to also learn a skill that they're not just using in a group. They might be calling their family on the weekend or phoning friends. From speaking to a lot of people with aphasia at the moment, a lot of people are quite cautious and a bit worried about starting to go out straight away. So I think people will still be quite cautious and want to continue something online just until they know that they're feeling quite safe.
Thank you. That's all we've got time for. Caitlin, thanks so much for going through this with us today. It feels like there's lots of information available for people, and we will post the links again in the chat box in case anybody's missed them. But for now, thanks again, Caitlin, for joining us. We're really grateful to have you here today.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. And that is all we've got time for today, I'm afraid, but we are back again on Friday, where we welcome a panel of people affected by stroke who are going to be talking about how they've kept connected throughout lockdown. And we'll also focus on the issue we just spoke about with Caitlin. As lockdown restrictions begin to be loosened, how are people feeling about getting back into the big wide world? So thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you on Friday. Take care.